And Nigerians have been urged to embrace diversity, coexist peacefully, and do away with the idea of secession. Notable speakers at the launch of the Kudirat Abiola Sabongari Peace Foundation in Kaduna State said Nigeria's unity is non-negotiable. They are also calling for a review of the country's national security architecture to incorporate traditional rulers. Arise correspondent Nisi Gabriel reports from Kaduna.
25 years after her death, Kudirat Olayinka Adeyemi Abiola, popularly known as Kudirat Abiola, is being honored for her contribution to Nigeria's democratic struggle.
If things go wrong and the democracy doesn't work, then it means only one thing, that my father and my mother died for nothing. And there's no way I can let that happen. So this time around, we are going to assist the government to look for solutions to problems.
The late Kudirat Abiola was born and bred in Sabongeri, Zaria, and this foundation is launched at a time when Nigeria is bedeviled with insecurity, secessionist agitations, and a myriad of others.
Community leaders can also serve as early warning agents, and they also serve as fast responders. If there is a problem in the community, people run to them. If there is fire, death, birth, they are informed. So they now lead the community to finding solutions. But my position is we are neglecting all of this.
President Buhari's representative says agitators of secession should redirect their energy to demand the implementation of local governments and judiciary autonomy.
So one of the things that will bring back peace in our community and in our nation is that autonomy must be respected, and I will urge our governors to respect that constitutional provision. Mr. President is emphasizing on that message, that this nation under his watch shall remain as one Nigeria. All those hotheads talking about separation and other things, they are very, very much ignorant of history, and they are very, very ignorant of war.
It's believed that the lack of proper knowledge of Nigeria's history is responsible for several breakaway agitations.
That is what they call civic studies. Even that civic studies and government, which tend to replace history, is not well taught in any of our primary and secondary schools. And because, you see, if you don't know yourself, you will not appreciate yourself. That's the essence. You understand? If we know what Nigeria is and why Nigeria came to be as it is today, all these problems that we are facing will be reduced to nothing.
There are calls for Nigerians to embrace unity and eschew tribal differences. The Kudirat Abiola Sabongeri Peace Foundation aims to ensure that the vision of democracy and the struggle of Nigeria's heroes past is not in vain. Nisi Gabriel, Arise News, Kaduna.
Well, for more on this, we're joined by Gloria Okolugbo, a politician and anti-corruption and good governance advocate. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you so much, Ngozi.
Yes, good to have you. I wonder what you make of the president's stance when he says those calling for restructuring are naive, and as a matter of fact, they're dangerous.
Well, Ngozi, let's look at it that way. As a nation, we are walking on eggshells, so we have to be very careful. When I read the headlines, I quickly went to look at the full report, and I read the entire points he made, and there were several points which made me realize that we have lots of signals coming in from everywhere, and it's a very difficult time for anybody who is at the helm of affairs. So we must settle down as Nigerians and look at the thrust of that speech and the points made there, and we also use the opportunity to look at how we can engage, because we are in we're in precarious times, whether we like it or yes. And so we have to look at how we can pull back as a nation.
So what exactly is your reading of the president's statement?
Yeah, there's so many aspects of that statement. He talked about the fact that we should go back to our representatives to make our points clear. He talked about the autonomy of local governments and the fact that it is not working. I give you an example of something that happened. The fire outbreak in Lagos. I was so heartbroken when I was watching it. And then I heard part of the commentary. Everybody was saying, oh, this is Nigeria, it doesn't work. It was very sad. This is the center of the city in Lagos. And I began to ask,
the fire that
yes, at Opic Plaza. And I began to ask myself, this is 2021, where you have drones dropping water. And then I remembered a report where I saw the FCT minister inspecting refurbished, at a particular time inspecting refurbished fire vans, and there was nothing inside. And if he had not opened those vans, nobody would have seen. Let's face it, if we talk about the system working, it's about all of us.
Well,
it's about things, it's about laws being justiciable, and it's about ensuring that because at the end of the day, it's the local government chairman that is the first port of call, then the governor, before you talk about the president.
Well, if it is agreed that, structurally, governance isn't working, particularly the local government and the rest, because they're independent, are not being guaranteed by the governors,
yes,
and ditto the judiciary, then isn't restructuring, the call for it, truly germane? People are saying, look, the federal government is too omnibus. Devolve some of your power so that we can tackle security within our domain and tackle other economic issues.
You and I understand what federalism is all about, and the federating units, what they are meant to. But right now, you find that the governors are the states are the federating units. And so for a long time, we have had, in the same constitution, we have the autonomy of the local governments provided for. So there's a lot of lacuna here and there. And the fear, there's palpable fear in the politics. So when people hear about restructuring and it's coming from people and they feel as if it's people who want to secede, there's a communication gap. And at the end of the day, it's about our representatives. Are they speaking enough to power to say, this is the meaning of what people are asking for? Or are people just assuming that IPOB automatically translates to the Igbo man? If you listen to Kano, we don't associate Boko Haram with the northern elite or the northern learned not wanting education. We have made a distinction for so many years. So why can't they make a distinction between what is happening, the crisis, the people who are causing the mayhem, and the ordinary woman and the ordinary child who is a victim of all of these circumstances? We must all be very careful. Because Gloria, we watched Liberia, we watched Sierra Leone, we have to be very careful.
So Gloria, in being careful, nations have been known to separate peacefully.
Yes.
Why is it difficult, or why do some proponents or opponents say Nigeria's unity is non-negotiable?
Let me put it this way. That phrase is what is part of our problem. You can't say it is non-negotiable under no circumstance. We must address our issues. And to be frank, the president is addressing it by doing things like the local government autonomy, by saying to the governors, go and take charge of your security. That's a word that they should have taken and ran with it. Implement immediately, because that's before the entire country. And he has said, take charge. What else? Now, you and me, I come from the Niger Delta. Ordinarily we would like, who doesn't want a freedom? But if we give ourselves freedom in all of the units, recently online I saw Ibom Nation, they went to submit an application, they want their own republic. Biafra says they want Niger Delta. That's like an insult to us. You can't put us in Biafra, for God's sake. We are even the golden, we are the geese that lays the golden egg, so we are the bride, and everybody's got to woo us. But if you even look within the Niger Delta, you have the Ijaw Nation, you have the Ndokwa Nation where I come from, you have very strong nations all within our system.
So many nations,
yes,
that
so
a lot of people would on the one hand say, like, this is actually an advantage to Nigeria.
It is.
But people seem to lose sight of the fact that it is a huge advantage. What then is the way forward? Because the president is saying, look, there's a need for governance to go back to the local government level, make the judiciary independent and all of that. But what do you think is that sustainable way that Nigerians can begin to believe in Nigeria again? Because
almost everything that is being handled right now is building towards restructuring. The only thing about it is the way the agitations and the signals are coming. Any leader would want to make sure that you're not facing a breakdown of law and order. And so I think that we're having a lot of communication problems. That's the first thing. When we know that we're having communication problems, and we know that we have to put our interests as a people at the forerunner, then we will sit back and begin to talk about equity, fairness, and representation of all the nations.
Is the federal government responding the way it should to this calls for restructuring or even self-determination?
Well, let's be honest. We're not very nice when we don't speak truth to power. When we don't speak truth to power, we're making, as a people, we're being selfish. We're being selfish, and then we're not helping ourselves as a people. Because if Nigeria tips over and there's a crisis, most of the people who can rescue us from this challenge right now, they have their families outside the country. I have my children in this country, and I'd rather fight for this country to stay together.
Let's thank you so very much, Gloria Okolugbo, former commissioner in Delta State and an advocate against anti-corruption and good governance.
Thank you
Thanks for
so
joining
much.
us.
Pleasure.